All right, so the story that we are reading today is the story of Ruby Bridges. Now, before we get started, we notice Ruby right here. Now, does Ruby look happy or does Ruby look sad? And then the group of people behind her, does that group of people look excited or do they look angry? Let's begin. Ruby Bridges was born in a small cabin near Tylerton, Mississippi. We were very, very poor. Very, very poor, Ruby said. My daddy worked picking crops. We just barely got by. There were times when we didn't have much to eat. The people who owned the land were bringing in machines to pick the crops. So my daddy lost his job, and that's when we had to move. I remember us leaving. I was 4, I think. In 1957, the family moved to New Orleans. Ruby's father became a janitor. Her mother took care of the children during the day. After they were tucked in bed, Ruby's mother went to work scrubbing floors in a bank. Every Sunday, the family went to church. We wanted our children to be near God's spirits, Ruby's mother said. We wanted them to start feeling close to Him from the very start. At that time, black children and white children went to separate schools in New Orleans. The black children were not able to receive the same education as the white children. It wasn't fair, and it wasn't against the nation's law. Do we know what it's called when two races are separated? What is that called? And then also, do we know what it is called when two races come together? In 1960, a judge ordered 4 black girls to go to white elementary schools. 3 of the girls were sent to McDonald, 19. 6-year-old Ruby Bridges was sent to the 1st grade in William Frantz Elementary School. Do we know what a judge is or what a judge does? Ruby's parents were proud that their daughter had been chosen to take part in an important event in American history. They went to church. We sat there and prayed to God, Ruby's mother said, that we'd all be strong and we'd have courage and we'd get through any trouble and Ruby would be a good girl and she'd hold her head up high and be a credit to her own people and a credit to all American people. We prayed long and we prayed hard. Now, why do we think Ruby might need courage in a situation like this? Have you ever been the new kid at a school or a sport team or a new activity? It can be very hard. On Ruby's first day, a large crowd of angry white people gathered outside Frantz Elementary School. The people carried signs that said they didn't want black children in a white school. So this large crowd of people, or this large group of people, it's called a crowd. And now you see those signs, and you can tell they have angry faces. This is called a protest. The city and the state police did not help Ruby. The President of the United States offered federal marshals to walk with Ruby into the school building. The marshals carried guns. Do we know what a U.S. Marshal is? Sorry, did not show the picture. Every day for weeks that turned into months, Ruby experienced that kind of school day. She walked to Frantz School surrounded by marshals wearing a clean dress and a bow in her hair and carrying her lunch pail. Ruby walked slowly for the first few blocks. As Ruby approached the school, she saw a crowd of people marching up and down the street. Men and women and children shouted at her. They pushed toward her. The marshals kept them from Ruby by threatening to arrest them. Ruby would hurry through the crowd and not say a word. Do we know what it's called when somebody does not pay attention to what the other person is doing? white people in the neighborhood would not send their children to school. When Ruby got inside the building, she was all alone except for her teacher, Miss Hurley. There were no other children to keep Ruby company, to play with and learn with, to eat lunch with. But every day Ruby went into the classroom with a big smile on her face, ready to get down to business of learning. She was polite and she worked well at her desk, Miss Hurley said. She enjoyed her time there. She didn't seem nervous or anxious or irritable or scared. She seemed as normal and relaxed as any child I've ever taught. So Ruby began learning how to read and write in an empty classroom, in an empty building. Sometimes I'd look at her and wonder how she did it, said Miss Hurley. How she went by those mobs and sat here all by herself and yet seemed so relaxed and comfortable. Miss Hurley would question Ruby in order to find out if the girl was really nervous and afraid, even though she seemed so calm and confident. But Ruby kept saying she was doing fine. The teacher decided to wait and see if Ruby would keep on being so relaxed and hopeful, or she'd gradually begin to wear down, or even decide that she'd no longer wanted to go to school. Then one morning, something happened. Miss Hurley stood by a window in her class, as she usually did, watching Ruby walk toward the school. Suddenly, Ruby stopped. Right in front of the mob of howling and screaming people, she stood there facing all those men and women. She seemed to be talking to them. Miss Hurley saw Ruby's lips moving and wondered what Ruby could be saying. The crowd seemed ready to kill her. The marshals were frightened. They tried to persuade Ruby to move along. They tried to hurry her into the school, but Ruby wouldn't budge. So now, regardless of what Ruby is doing, do we think Ruby is brave? Then Ruby stopped talking and walked into the school. So you can see Ruby right there in front of all those people. Okay. All right. When she went into the classroom, Miss Hurley asked her, "What happened?" Miss Hurley told Ruby that she'd been watching and that she was surprised when Ruby stopped and talked with the people in the mob. Ruby became irritated. "I didn't stop and talk with them," she said. "Ruby, I saw you talking," Miss Hurley said. "I saw your lips moving." "I wasn't talking," said Ruby. "I was praying. I was praying for them every morning." Ruby had stopped a few blocks away from school to say a prayer for those people who hated her. This morning, she forgot until she was already in the middle of the angry mob. When school was over for the day, Ruby hurried through the mob as usual. After she walked a few blocks and the crowd was behind her, Ruby said the prayer she repeated twice a day, before and after school. "Please, God, try to forgive those people, because even if they said those bad things, they don't know what they're doing. So you could forgive them, just like you did those folk a long time ago when they said terrible things." Afterward, later that year, 2 white boys joined Ruby at France Elementary School. Their parents were tired of seeing the boys get into mischief around the house when they could have been in school and learning. The mob became very angry when the first white boys went back to school, but those boys were soon joined by other children. "We've been sitting back and letting our children get cheated out of an education because some people have tried to take the law into their own hands," one parent said. "It's time for us to fight for the side of law and for our children's right to go to a school and get their education. They all did get their education, Ruby and a growing number of boys and girls who went to school with her. By the time Ruby was in the 2nd grade, the mobs had given up their struggle to scare Ruby and defeat the federal judge's order that New Orleans schools be desegregated so that children of all races might be in the same classroom. Year after year, Ruby went to the France school. She graduated from it, then went on to graduate from the high school. Ruby Bridges is married to a building contractor and has 4 sons who attend school within New Orleans' public school system. Now as a successful businesswoman, she has created the Ruby Bridges Educational Foundation for the purpose of increasing parental involvement in schools.